All right, so today we're talking about the Smith machine. We all know the Smith machine is the one piece of equipment in the gym that I think noticeably has the most stigmas attached to it. And there's a couple different reasons for this. But when you think of the Smith machine, you think of people that are afraid to train hard and people that are scared to get under a barbell. And a lot of the time you think of people that just don't get good results because they resort to the Smith machine because they're afraid of the hard work. There's a false correlation that people have made with the Smith machine and these types of people. And you still see these types of people to this day. Like, I've been to the gym where I see somebody that is making no gains, looks the same month in, month out, year in, year out, and they hide in the Smith machine and that's all they do. The problem is that the issue isn't with the Smith machine, the issue is with them. And if you tell these types of people and you say, oh, you're soft because you're not training under a barbell and you're resorting to the Smith instead, go under a barbell and you'll actually get big. No, they'll stay the same because they're just not going to work hard and they'll be under a barbell instead. So there's this entire, and this is like years and decades of this weird stigma around Smith machines for some reason because of this false correlation. And for some reason it still rings true to this day, and it's unfortunate to see because we've mislabeled the tool because of a select few people that never really cared about fitness in the first place for hiding in the Smith machine. And now people are like, oh, well, you can't use the Smith machine because look, all the small people are using it. This is ridiculous. So people come up with more explanations for the Smith machine not being a practical use, a practical tool in the gym. And they'll say things like, it will get you injured, you're weak, you're not going to be able to work hard enough on a Smith machine. These are all entirely baseless. These are all like emotional arguments. They're not actually founded in any logic whatsoever. The injuries thing, that's a little bit of a different argument, but I'd argue in the vast majority of cases, this is not something that you have to worry about. So when it comes to the Smith machine, the first point that I want to talk about here is it's not a barbell. And any time you try and make an argument for the Smith machine, for it being a good use of your time and a good piece of equipment, the only people that will argue against you will always compare it to a barbell. And I found out why they do this. It's because it looks like a barbell. Like the bar that you press on in the Smith machine, it looks like a barbell. It has knurling, it has the rings, and it has the sleeves on the end. Like, it just looks like a barbell. It basically is a barbell, but it's actually a machine. So the point that I'm trying to get at here is you don't have to pick between the two. You don't have to constantly pit them against each other. It makes no sense. So when it comes to using the Smith machine, you have to recognize, why are you using the Smith machine? What are you training for? What are you looking to get out of the Smith machine? When I decide to go into the Smith machine, the reason why I use it, the place that it has in my program, is for brutally hard sets, because you can push it so close to failure for multiple reasons. It's very safe and it's very stable. So it's perfect for those grindy reps towards the end of a set. Something like a JM press, any type of press really in the Smith is unreal. Highly recommend. I know I rave about it quite a bit on the channel, but it's not a barbell. Like, if I was to use a barbell because I wanted to become, let's say, as strong as I possibly could in my body's most efficient path of pressing, a barbell makes more sense, but I don't care about that. I got a strong bench and it didn't, like, I didn't care at all. And that's just not who I am. It's not what I care about. I wanted big, juicy pecs. And that's kind of what I'm after. So the Smith machine makes sense for me because to get big, juicy pecs, you need the reps that grind at the end of the set. You want that stability. It's a big bonus. And that it's as simple as that. Like, there's these little things that it's like when you don't look at it in this emotional way, you start to realize that it's just another tool. And you kind of realize this where people don't necessarily compare like a hammer strength press machine to a barbell bench as much as they would a Smith machine bench to a barbell bench, because it doesn't look like a barbell. So I think we have to move on from always pitting these two against each other. Like, look at them as separate tools that you can use for what you think is best. And it's as simple as that. The next point that I have here, and this is one that I don't want you guys to take this the wrong way, But I think the risk of injury, or our perceived risk of injury, to put it properly, on a Smith machine is far higher than it actually is. I think if it's your first day in the gym and you're trying to learn and you're basically trying to refine your coordination, you're trying to learn how your body moves and get it to move in the right ways, just doing a Smith machine isn't the best way to do that. But at the same time, assuming you have some type of free weight variation, a beginner using a Smith machine isn't a recipe for disaster. A lot of the time, machines are actually an incredibly good option for new lifters. And the reason for this is because you don't have to learn how to lift as much with a machine as you have to learn with a free weight. So if it takes you weeks or months to really refine your free weight pressing, or free weight anything for that matter, then why not just use a machine to build up muscle in the meantime? You don't have to worry about stability. You don't have to worry about coordination. You can kind of just bypass that and get right to the good stuff. And it's not like you have to train incredibly hard and push right to failure when you're a complete beginner, because you just don't require that much stimulus. So it's one of those things where if you're purely using a Smith machine and you're only using it incorrectly, you're probably going to hurt yourself, especially if you're a beginner. But if you're using the Smith machine properly and you pay attention to your form and you watch your feedback, or you have a coach or whatever, you have a buddy watch you, you're probably fine, especially if you have other free weight movements in your program. That way you can learn the coordination. You can learn how to move your body when it's not in one particular path that's already preset for you, and you can make great gains in the meantime. So the way I see it is, if you take a beginner and you plop them down on a flat bench and you put a Smith machine over them, and they press as much as they can, they're just going to build big pecs. Like, as long as they're doing some other type of like free weight variation in their program, you should be totally fine. And I think a lot of people are way over concerned, and they're just stigmatizing the Smith machine for reasons that they don't really grasp. And then to kind of move a little bit further here, a lot of people say that you shouldn't use the Smith machine because it's a fixed path. And this is kind of ironic, because when you're training for hypertrophy, not all the time, but a lot of the time, you want to train in something that isn't your natural path. So when you hear this argument, oh, you shouldn't be training the Smith machine because it puts you in a fixed path that isn't your body's natural pressing motion, or isn't your body's natural whatever motion you're doing for that movement. This isn't the most valid argument, because when you're training for hypertrophy, you actually sometimes want to put your body in a position where it's not going in the most efficient way possible. When you have a barbell on your back, the easiest way to squat up is the easiest way for your body to squat up. So guess what happens? Your strongest muscles, the leverages that you have are already decided for you. We already know where that bar is going to go. It takes quite a bit of mental effort, and it takes quite a bit of experience to actively resist against that with a barbell. So you take something like a plat squat or a JM press, for example. Those lifts actively take, it's mentally taxing to keep yourself in that position and not just press it up easier, or squat the bar up in an easier, more efficient way. So the Smith machine removes that entirely. And you can set yourself up maybe a little bit behind the bar or a little bit in front of the bar in a squat, and you can entirely change what leverages you have during that lift. And guess what? That changes what hypertrophy benefits you're going to get from that lift. And then one of the most underrated and overlooked aspects of the Smith machine, in my opinion, even like arguably as much, if not more overlooked than the physical aspect, is the psychological benefits of using the Smith machine. And there's a few different reasons for this. I think when it comes to using a Smith machine, there's no strength standards attached to it whatsoever. And I think that is a huge, massive weight off of so many people's shoulders. No pun intended. But when you take something like a Smith machine and you don't have that social pressure of having to hit a certain number or being worried about not lifting enough weight, it allows you to focus on the proper training that you need to get the most stimulus you can out of that set. So what I mean by this is, when you see people benching and everybody in the gym's looking at you, whether they are or not, you think they are when you're benching, especially if you're not a good bencher yet. You're like, oh, everyone's judging me because I can't bench 315 for 5 yet. So it removes that entire social pressure that a lot of the time you put on yourself unknowingly. Most people aren't watching you in the gym, just for my commercial gym guys. Most people aren't watching you. Unless you're like freakishly jacked or something, then 99% of people don't really care. When it comes to these strength standards and the peer pressure, the social pressure that comes with these barbell lifts, the Smith machine allows you to do a very similar variation that's arguably better in a lot of cases, in my opinion. And it also removes a lot of that psychological pressure that you put on yourselves and that the community will put on you. So if you're somebody that should be benching maybe 185 to 200 for your working sets, you're going to do whatever you can to get to 225, and that means you want it as soon as possible in most cases. So you'll arch your back more, you'll widen your grip up, you'll bounce your reps. You see this all the time. A lot of people just like to call it ego lifting, which is kind of the go-to term for this. The problem with this is that you're sacrificing the future for the present. So if you're somebody that wants to, let's say you are benching, like I said, 185 to 200, and that's your best working weight to use to get you the most stimulus and grow you the most muscle and set yourself up for the best success in the mid to long term, there's a lot of pressure for you just to slap on 225 and either do lower reps or you slop your form just so you can use that higher weight. And I know what it's like because, one, I've been there to an extreme on basically every barbell lift. And two, I see it all the time. Like, I'm back training in a commercial gym pretty regularly now, and I still see it all the time. Like, this is something, it will never go away. I don't think it will ever go away. I don't think it's as bad as it used to be, because I do think hypertrophy is actually making a bit of a comeback, but you still see this all the time where people sacrifice so much just for that short-term number on the bar. And it's like, it's not the end of the world, but when you sacrifice your technique, you're sacrificing the hypertrophy you get from the set. It's as simple as that. And that's not only just a problem for that session, that's a problem for the long term, because what are you going to do when most of your let's say your bench work is insufficient for growing the muscles that you want to? What about your squat work, which is much more nuanced in terms of technique? What if you just say, all right, well, I'm tired of squatting 185 high bar and I just want to go work with 245 for my working sets because it's more weight, and go low bar and maybe go to parallel instead of all the way down. Now maybe your quads like won't grow at all, and that's what happened to me. So you have to understand that a lot of us, just as people in general, we're very prone to social pressure and pressure that the community puts on us. And that's why I'm not the biggest fan of strength standards. And the Smith machine is the easiest way to detach yourself from that, because nobody cares. You don't care about pressing a certain amount of plates on a Smith machine. Like 99.9% of you guys don't care whatsoever. What you'll focus on is maximally stimulating that muscle. And guess what happens then? Ironically, you'll progress better. And that's just how it works. Like, the best progress I've ever made on my lifts, it's in the Smith machine. It works incredibly well. And this isn't to say that you can't progress with barbell lifts, of course, because if you have the right mindset going into them, then you're totally fine. But so many people are so prone to this social pressure and the pressure of the community, which can be overcome. But the Smith machine is a pretty simple way to quickly overcome that and still get at least the same stimulus, if not better, for hypertrophy. And that's basically all I wanted to go into today on the Smith. So if you guys have any questions on the Smith, let me know in the comments. I might make another video on it. If you guys want to see more videos on the Smith machine, or even maybe like form videos or something on the Smith, if you have any requests, let me know in the comments. I might choose it if I think it's a worthwhile video to make. So with that being said, I hope you guys learned something, and I hope you truly consider putting the Smith machine into your program if you have access to one. As you know, I'm a pretty big fan, so enjoy the gains.